begin now our second morning session, round two. This topic is about peace and security, which obviously is affecting all of us nowadays. So we've heard Eric's introduction, so we're going to talk to Gleb and Petra. Maybe you can just introduce yourselves quickly, your backgrounds, and also a bit about what your research brings to the table about these two subjects. And maybe then we'll talk about the ARC as well, relationship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gleb Toropchin, and I come from Russia, and I represent two universities here, Novosibirsk State Technical University and Novosibirsk State University of Economics and Management. And I have a specialist degree, as we call it in Russia, in international relations and translation and communication for English and German. And then I enrolled into a PhD program, and I finished my PhD 2 years ago in modern and contemporary history. And in the ARC, I was conducting qualitative and quantitative research in terms of how people see their national images and how these national images, they can be anthropomorphic, zoomorphic, or phytomorphic, as we learned, how these images can influence the perception of a country by an individual. Maybe we could talk about the ARC lately, and Petra will present herself. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Petra. I'm originally from Slovenia, but I move around a lot, so it's hard to actually say what my identity is. I'm a social psychologist. Even though I studied mostly communities, eco-villages, I'm very much interested in the social structure. So my background is also in criminology and criminal justice, specifically critical criminology. So I try to kind of interweave and interconnect all of the things that I'm interested in. And during the ARC, I was focusing on cults, power, and influence. So that was my contribution.
And as for the whole experience with the ARC, it was quite unexpected to me, because usually I take part in regular academic conferences and the atmosphere there is absolutely different. Here we had a true community in all senses, and we had a very interesting alloy of art and science here, art, scholarship, science. And the good thing is we had to participate in all of these events. There was no separation. Guys with PhD degrees were making these fancy costumes and also going out on the streets of this district, as well as artists were taking an active part in our discussions of our talks. This was really amazing, and thanks to Grace, we had such a beautiful opportunity.
Yeah, this week for me, I felt like I was at home. I'm currently living in a community where I met Grace a couple of years ago. So I've been to quite a few communities. And yeah, it was amazing because usually I was allowed to communicate with the outside world, but this time I kind of wasn't. But I don't know what else to say. Yeah, it was an experience, and my mind is a bit overwhelmed with the possibilities of what I can do with all of these new experiences, all of these new data, and yeah, how I can apply it to community research in the future.
Maybe you can describe, not really your talk, but about these sessions, these recap sessions. So in the evenings, we would have some evenings which we would basically be able to do whatever we want. Some people continued making their costumes. One night we had a poetry workshop from Sue, which was amazing, where we learned how to write Japanese haiku poems, which was about food and the garden experience. But then Petra actually curated 2 evening events where we looked at non-violent communication. And I think that would be quite interesting to describe how you brought the topics in your talk about group dynamics, individuals, how you played with us in these games, how you brought us together.
I'm not sure how much I should convey, because now. So yeah, when Grace asked me to do 2 sessions, I was thinking, okay, and I wanted to bring communication and team dynamics, but also the dynamics we have on the inside, because I kind of feel everything is a projection. So you have to be aware dually, so what is happening inside and what is happening outside, and the whole complexity of it. So I tried to come up with a couple of exercises, and the first evening, I wanted the group to experience communication, real communication, and how difficult it is in a group, and how it is experienced. Because when people say communication, let's just talk, and let's see who knows the most, and create a hierarchy, and this person is the leader. So I've decided to introduce this game called the Alien Invasion. So where the participants weren't allowed to talk, and they had to protect themselves from this intruding alien, protect their houses without really communicating in conventional ways. And I think that kind of opened the door for everybody to experience that, communication doesn't only happen verbally and structurally. It's something that happens maybe on an energetic level as well. Communication happens just by walking into a room. It's about presence. It's about different individual strategies that we constantly have but might not be conscious of. So I wanted people to really see what the possibilities are without kind of taking away all of these conventional structures and bringing more opportunity, more possibilities for creativity. Is that enough?
Yes, I mean, in terms of those gains, because they were really talking about how to protect, how to hold on to land. I mean, we use these pieces of cardboard, and we were all given places to stand, and then we would have to basically somehow physically protect our own space, but without talking. So it's very difficult, and our group, we were only lasting 40 seconds. That's how difficult the game is. But as we got along, we got better and better and better, and we tried to come up with different strategies. And I'm interested in how that relates to peace and security. Like in terms of how we can protect ourselves as individuals within a world of where we're being more and more controlled by the state, and different state players as well, and how, these power dynamics, how, these kind of games reflect our actual living situation in the city.
Yeah, this is a very difficult question, but thank you for that, Grace. The most difficult question in the most difficult panel. Okay. How I would just try to approach thinking about this is actually, maybe surprisingly, from the individual level, because our second session was about our own individual identities, what kind of box we put ourselves in, and what kind of box we put others in. So it's kind of this limit. So with this limit, we create the danger in our mind. And don't get me wrong, this box is not only constructed by ourselves, it's constructed by our family, by the society that we live in. So what is inside the box, we find safe. And what we put outside the box is the other. So is that other person or that other quality we need to protect ourselves against. So maybe when we start thinking about why we put certain qualities on the outside and why we identified with other qualities on the inside can give us more of an insight into what are we actually fighting against. Because technically it's the society telling us who the other person is, and it's the media telling us what that other people, what they're doing to us, why they are dangerous. But is it really true? Are we those people on the inside, but we're just not allowing ourselves to admit it? Are we protecting ourselves from those violent, lazy foreigners? Or are we also, violent inside? I know I am. Are we lazy? Yeah. So it's all about how are we constructing this other person we are fighting against, but maybe you can have like more.
Yeah, thank you very much, Petra. I have a very curious comment coming up, and it has to do with the model, because here we represented ourselves as individuals, obviously, and it had to do with the individual layer of security, personal layer of security, if you will, that is always there, and it's becoming more and more important in our hectic times. Nevertheless, what comes to my mind is this metaphor with the state, because the states behave the same way. They're constructing an image of an enemy, and it has to do with the collective unconsciousness that there is in psychology. And if we want to advance somehow as a society, we need to think about changing this mentality and changing this frame and trying to understand the other. And a very important part of it is this mirror thing, because all of these qualities and attributes that have to do with the stranger, with a person or a state that is perceived as an enemy, they have to be understood, and we need to try to think maybe there are these qualities within ourselves.
Yes, one question, Gleb, because obviously you're coming from the Russian paradigm, and I'd like you to just explain about the propaganda that's given on Russian television about Europe. I think it was very interesting when we first met, because me and Gleb had only Skyped and emailed. We had never met in person. And when he arrived, he arrived on the plane and everything, and to come here, he'd had to get a visa, he'd had to apply to his university for permission and for some funding. And what was funny is when he arrived, one of the first things he told me that in Russia, his family were very scared for his security coming to Europe. Because on Russian television, there is many propaganda that Europe is a very dangerous place. And you can be kidnapped, there's bombings, and so it is a reverse propaganda. So maybe you can talk about that for a second.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story, of course, but yes, there is definitely propaganda on Russian TV, as I believe there is on any kind of TV, because you need to answer one question. Qui prodest in Latin, which is who gets the benefit. And obviously it is the state that gets benefit from this propaganda, trying to unite its citizens in terms of one common enemy. And I guess it's a very effective strategy, unfortunately, because it works. And Grace actually told me there is the same thing basically in Western discourse, where you're talking about this dangerous Russia, and this is not somehow constructed. In terms of that, I was reading the regulations of the US State Department the other day for citizens coming to Russia, and they were told to avoid certain regions, for example, because you might be kidnapped. So this is very interesting that the same mechanisms are applied on both sides, and if we understand this as citizens, probably then it will be easier for us to build a dialogue.
And now, Eric, I'd like to ask you a question in relationship. Obviously, you're coming from America, which we know now is the land of Donald Trump, and maybe in relation to before and during, and let's hopefully after Donald Trump, maybe about these questions about peace and security and how that relates to, because you've been living in New York for many, 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 many years. So you've been there during September 11th and during Occupy, and now during during Obama's election, during Trump's election. And maybe you can talk a bit about that and how you think the security measures have changed and how that affects living in that type of city.
I think right now everybody is feeling just bombarded with one thing after another under Trump, and we don't really know how to react. We don't have the time to react. We don't know how to resist. We're trying. And I think it's intentional that there's a mirroring that's going on, like what you're saying, that keeping everyone from knowing what's going on and not seeing things until they've already happened. And it makes me think a little bit about after 9/11, there was that moment that the United States was seen as possibly a victim. And there was a moment of reconsideration of policy that perhaps we shouldn't be occupying the world. But that quickly changed into a marketing strategy. And there was a predominance of patriotism. There was a predominance of ways to buy flags. They were just everywhere. Pins. And basically the way you supported your country was by buying things. And I think that became clear too when we attacked Afghanistan. We started setting up camps in the desert where we're creating ice machines in the desert, which gave a lot of opportunities to corporations to make more money. And profit is driving a lot of this. And to support this profit, we just keep doing it, over and over. And we don't seem to know how to stop. It's being, there are these unseen forces that maybe even they don't know what they're doing at this point. So I would hope that we can start to see these forces and see how they're operating. It seems one of the things that here we are seeing is how it is to look at ourselves, how to look at the way that processes are occurring, and maybe reconsidering that.
Yes, I'd like to ask Gleb a question, because Gleb's been doing a questionnaire which you can fill out today, which is about national identity, and maybe you can talk a bit about that, because as Eric was just saying, the branding of countries, the selling of that image, and how that affects the peace and security of our world.
Yes, my talk basically was connected with how our countries represent themselves on this subliminal, subconscious level, because if we are talking about official branding, of course there are some tokens such as flags and coats of arms and whatnot, and animals can be represented, zoomorphic images that is, can be represented already at this scale, on this scale, and this happens to a whole lot of countries, and this influences our perception of the country on the official level on the one hand. Nevertheless, there are some images that are there in the subconscious of each and every individual. You know that one country can be represented as an anthropomorphic figure, for example, take Uncle Sam, or Marianne in France, or Britannica in the United Kingdom, obviously. And there are some attributes that are connected with these either animals or anthropomorphic figures, because Uncle Sam represents, for example, not only America on the whole, but the American government, as well as Russian bear, which is universally attributed with such qualities as aggressiveness. And I was referring to a survey made in America, and the American respondents in Washington chose aggressiveness as one of the key traits, whereas Russians chose laziness, curiously enough. Yeah, and this is how the same image is perceived differently in different countries, which might influence the way we see not only the country as a whole, but the representatives of this country. And Grace referred to a very interesting metaphor in the follow-up discussion after my talk. She was talking about several diplomats sitting at the same table, and the way they see each other. There is not a Russian diplomat on the one side, but a bear in Ushanka on the one hand, and there is no British diplomat, but for example, a lion sitting there in front of you. And curiously enough, these animals are mostly predators for these big countries with ambitions. This is why you have to have these claws and talons and beaks and fangs in order to protect yourself. And this would be seen as a very interesting metaphor of weapons to my mind. And you are all wholeheartedly welcome to fill in the questionnaire that is there on the table in the hall. This would really contribute to my research that I'm conducting in terms of semiotics, because this has to do with discourse of symbols and science and how it influences our psychology and perception of different individuals and countries as well.
So, Petra, I just quickly want to ask, in terms of, obviously you do a lot of research about cults and groups where power is used to not just contain, but to control and dominate individuals. And this idea of these badges that I produced, the purple one says charismatic cult leader, and the other one says working together for a plant-based future. So one is really about community and connection in the ARC, and the other one is really about being an individual. And I decided when I created these badges is to give all these badges to all the participants and to just let them choose which badge they would want to wear on which day. So some people would choose to wear one badge or another, or they would wear both. And this was very interesting to see how that develops, because some people, they began the week really feeling, no, we're going to be very harmonious, we're going to be very democratic, and it's all about working together for a plant-based future. And then as the week went on, they decided, they changed, and they became much more interested in being a charismatic cult leader. Because the idea is that anybody can be a charismatic cult leader, and everybody needs to keep their individual identity. So it was a game on playing on seeing how you would change your ideas about yourself and how the perception of others, if that would affect you, whether you would feel embarrassed or ashamed to say you want to be a charismatic cult leader, or would you just, and therefore just automatically pick the more harmonious working together badge, or would you just go against the grain and think, today I really want to be this charismatic cult leader? Maybe you can talk a bit, Petra, about the slogans and the ARC and about these badges and about our discussions in coming into the ARC.
Continuing from your little comment on the badges. I've actually observed that, like you in the beginning, people mostly chose the green one. And then when it was their day to speak or do something, they chose the pink one. Maybe to give themselves a bit more confidence. But have you noticed today, and maybe yesterday, most of us had 2 badges, if not all of us. So it kind of came from choosing one or the other to all of us, mostly. I think today all of us are wearing 2 badges. So we're wearing 2 badges. So I think this is like a very, very interesting thing to think about. Because Grace and I, when we were talking about this, we were thinking of how to recreate a stereotypical cult. So we were saying, well, we have to create uniforms so people feel like they're part of one team, that they're all equal, that we're all working together. So it kind of helps to solidify this identity of one core, strong group. And then for the cult leader, also always slightly different, at least slightly different. And I think this is where the idea of the pink badge came in. I don't know, do you want to add something to that?
Yes, but by giving the pink badge to everyone, it kind of nullifies this individual hierarchy that, if everybody can be a cult leader, then nobody's a cult leader at the same time. And I think that's a reflection of today's society in a way, in terms of the way that social media functions and the internet, that everybody, you can be on the internet and people can post faceless comments. And so that they feel they're in charge, of their individual identity. But then onto the outside world, when they go to work, they're very interested in being in community. So it's a play on those things as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that just theoretically, there's a constant interplay between two different power dynamics. One is more minority influence, which is kind of one person influencing a big group of people, and vice versa, so majority influence, where a big group of people is influencing other people coming in, so everybody is submitting to the majority. And people often overlook this, but we're constantly a part of this little soup of influences when we go from our home to our, hobby group, when we go to work, and sometimes we're the employee, sometimes we're the boss, and then we go into a shop and we don't know where everything is. So it's constantly going on. So actually, yeah, in reality, there is always this mixed badges that we're kind of labeling ourselves with. And it's interesting to sometimes try to be conscious of these processes that are constantly, playing out.
I think you can see that in the current, the most recent elections in Western countries, this confusion of wanting to be part of a society, and also, like, for example, in England with Brexit, of wanting to be part of Europe or not be part of Europe. You want to be an individual state, but then you still want all the rights of being in Europe. So it's that confusion or paradox, I think that's just like a natural state that all human beings are in, and I don't think it makes really sense to choose one or the other. It's always changing. And so maybe, Eric, you could say something about how, so in these recent elections about, the election of neoliberal governments like Trump's, like the Conservative government in the UK, sort of in France with the recent elections, with Le Pen luckily not getting in. I mean, how does this topic fit into that discussion?
I had an idea, but that sidetracked it.
You can say whatever.
I was thinking that, as individuals, we try to find a balance between the two. And that keeps us being human. But, if you look at a corporation, there was a film that talked about a corporation as a psychopath, that it doesn't have the same limits that we do. And perhaps those extremes affect us very strongly.
Okay, maybe we should open to some questions, and we can always go back to discussion as well. If anybody has a question, please.
About the question of responsibility. Maybe share with us some moments where it was like a test, because I can imagine that it's really complicated to share and live kind of utopia like this. And the question of peace and security is also based on responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a short introduction. Of course, peace and security are deeply interconnected with the choices that you make, with how you construct yourself, and with all these different layers of roles that you apply for yourself. And this has to do with your interaction with the others as well. For example, in this questionnaire, talking about this multi-layer self-perception, probably self-identity and self-consciousness. I given out two questions to different people because they went into in one country, and then they moved to another. And it is basically their choice and their responsibility to choose whether it be one identity, it could be one identity, or even two identities. And if it's one, it could be either their country of origin, their country of residence, so to say. But talking about responsibility as a group, here at the ARC, curiously enough, we acted as just one organism. On the one hand, you were versatile. You could either wash the dishes or help out in the kitchen, on the one hand. Then it was your responsibility to sew these costumes and stitch them and so on. So we actually, like I said, were taking these different roles, and this was very important for us as probably a versatile personality.
Yeah, I'd like to add something maybe. I think we all would like to believe that we were all equal, but I think maybe on an unconscious level we knew, that Grace was the one in charge. So I have this special occasion in my mind. Is, for example, we had this rule that we're not supposed to interact with anybody outside of the group. So whenever we saw a person coming through the gates, we said, stranger danger, what are we going to do? This is the rule. And we knew what our responsibility was, but at the same time we knew that we didn't have the same power to go and talk to that person. Maybe we didn't have enough knowledge of the language. So for me personally, my unconscious reaction was always like, where's Grace? We need to find Grace. She needs to go there and tell them to go out. I'd like to hear, what some other reactions were.
It's quite funny because my French is terrible and everybody knows it, so of course I had some power, but not that much power. Eric was given the job of locking up. He was our security man. We'd had official security men that would come stay up from 10 p.m. until 7 in the morning, and they would just stay in the kitchen area. But Eric was the one who would do the lock-up and the opening of doors at certain times, and had the keys, and so, maybe you could talk about that role and how it works in terms of trying to protect our area, or not protect it in a libertarian type way, I don't really like that, but how, in terms of keeping, because before the ARC we'd had many conversations with the neighbouring businesses, the boxing, gym, the theatre, because this is kind of a shared garden, but actually Labo is the one that really takes care of the garden. They have the chickens, they grow the food, they really, look after the space. And since I've been here for many weeks and months, I've seen how other people who use the garden from the other businesses, especially the boxing and the gym, and they don't necessarily respect the garden in the same way. I've noticed, sometimes they will gather together and they'll drink a lot of beer and they'll just trash, And so one of my fears was, how are we going to have a safe space to do our rituals? Because sometimes we do spiritual work outside. And, on the table, we want to create a medicine wheel, and we want to do, let's say, some shamanic exercises outside. How would we do that in an urban setting and have a shared garden with neighbours that don't necessarily have the same philosophies? I think that reflects a lot about the real world as well. So maybe you could talk about your role as a security man in the ARC, and also about how whether it affected our peace and how that connects to the outer world.
My role, I actually was given a choice. I could bang the gong to wake people up in the morning, or I could take the keys. And this was all through email before I was, so I thought that gong sounds a little too zippy for my style. So, so I went for the keys. And my job was to get up when the gong went off and open up the gates, open up the doors in the morning. Pretty simple. And in the evening at 8 o'clock, reverse. Didn't sound like it. But we started working late, and we were getting ready for this parade, and it was hot. And so the door was open in the studio, and I shut it in normal time. And then Ricardo said, yeah, it's really rough in here, Eric. You think maybe you know better? And so, and then I'm old, so I had to go to sleep around 11, and they're working all night. And so I got up in the morning, and pretty soon was confronted. I was waiting for it. I was confronted with Grace about that can't be done. You can't. This is your job. So I did try to explain to her why I left it. But these, I kind of feel, you know, it's my transgression, it's my responsibility, and take responsibility for it. And it seems like everybody here went through something like that with Grace. There was some transgression that had to be dealt with. And I wondered whether that was intentional on your part or not. Whether you start to create this image of this charismatic leader that they see everything. And, or maybe she's affected by the same feelings that we do in going through this process.
Should I answer that?
Yeah.
No, I think I can, because for me, I'm in a very difficult and complicated position because, obviously I've been invited by the staff to be here, and the staff have kindly given us their building. The staff really didn't, they really either didn't come into work or they worked in a very subtle way so that we could create this system of having isolation. So we really worked hard with the staff to come up with a way that we would have a separate community within a building. Okay, but as the person doing the installation, I also had a lot of responsibility. I had the staff telling me beforehand, if you open this door, this will happen. People can't go in this room, I was given contracts to sign and, many things that the participants didn't understand or know about. And so this was always on the back of my mind, because I, for example, just as I was about to, the first day of the art was going to happen, I was, again told no one can burn anything in the building. Well, obviously no one can burn anything in the building, but there's a fear of, which makes sense, because this is their building and they have to work in it and they're attached to it. So I was trying to play a role of being an in-between person. I'm playing the dynamic between balancing what the staff need and, for the security of the building, but also what the ARC and the participants need. So when I had gone to bed, I think I went to bed at 2 a.m. that day, Sunday, and that door was open. And that's the door that, if that's open, people can just walk in very easily into our building. And that's going into our sleeping area and where computers are. So it's it's where the security guard was told that he didn't have to protect, because he was told that he didn't have to do rounds, like he wouldn't have to walk around the building at night time. And I only said that because we didn't want to scare the participants to have a security guard walking around at night time looking, with a torch, So we've come up with a great agreement that he would stay more in the kitchen area and just watch the main door. But it was the back door that was left open. And so that was really shocking to see, okay, the fact that, of course, there was the heat issue, but there's also the issue of, really, you can't leave that door open, and also because I've been reminded constantly by the staff about leaving certain doors open. So it's a very hard role to play, in terms of that.
I guess that leads to a question that I have for you. There was a lot of speculation about you. There was talk among us about how you do, and we try not to say it.
Maybe don't say that.
How did you feel that? Did you feel that people were talking about you, and did that affect how you ran the art, or did it affect how you felt about it?
That's life, isn't it? Because I'm in a very hard position. Telling people what to do when they don't want to do it is not necessarily fun. But then again, you all signed up to come. I didn't make anyone come, I didn't make anyone, so you're all adults, you all knew the game, it's a game, and I've also really tried to consider people's personalities, what they need. You know, some people really wanted to be more creative, more academic, be outside, more, you know, I've really spent a long time. And then there's this whole thing about when you're in different communities, like I was saying about having rules and discipline, the rules and discipline feel very intense, and you can feel squeezed sometimes. Like I've had it when I've lived in the pastor centres where, you know, there's no reading, no writing, no talking, and for 10 days, and you feel really squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. But then these other things start to happen, because other parts of your personality that you never normally get to use become used. And so that's like the whole process of trust, of going on a retreat or going into a game, you know. When I say game, it's not like Big Brother, you know, like that kind of game, like trying to play with people in that way. But having rules means that you get kind of squeezed and then other things happen. And I think, maybe it'd be nice to hear from Edgardo in terms of, you know, what you were saying about, Edgardo, about how you felt the changes in your personality. You know, we were talking, I think it was yesterday, about changes, you know, because of this ARC system. Could you pass Edgardo the microphone?
Well, I think people are defined by... It's on. It's on? Okay. I think people are defined culturally, yeah? And my culture is definitely Afro-Caribbean, yeah? I speak loud. Everyone speaks at the same time, very loud. Playing music, loud music as a background while speaking. Being shy, being introverted is not necessarily a polite thing in the Caribbean. So you are very social oriented but chaotic oriented. And being in a situation where you must, you know, somehow calm down and so on, enhances other paths, other ways of interaction to people. Yeah, because you want to interact with people. I mean, you are loud in the Caribbean because you are interacting with people. But here is different. So, to me, it was a kind of revisiting myself and rediscover many things I was doing earlier, like demonstrations, for instance, and so on. But also to just forget about protagonism, because I think that's the problem with the Caribbean. Everyone is protagonic, and that's why we talk all together at the same time, and so on. So I also started to meditate, because if you are talking too much, you do not meditate, you don't get silent, you don't listen to yourself, and you are trying to rationalize all the time how to cope with your own goals. But by meditating, you know the goals are still there. You know they will never go away, but you cope with them. And you invest some time on them and then do something else. And you get it without silent communication. You get it without meditation, silent breakfast. There are many things I think I'm going to practice outside.
Thank you. We're going to actually, I think maybe the lunch is going to start to be ready, so we're going to wrap up now. Do you have any last words? Okay. All right then, thank you very much.